This is the one. All right, great. Hey, everyone. Morning. For those of you who don't know me, my name's Gordon. I'm going to be emceeing our little moth session today. So, quick show of hands, who has attended one of these here at CrossWalk before on a Sunday? We've done 2 of them before. All right, so that's most of us. Today's theme is Unsung Heroes. So if you know that you want to share today, go ahead and write your name on one of those clue-in pieces of paper that you find in the center of the table. Come on up and put it in this little tin, and I'll pull the names from the tin in a little bit. And while folks are thinking about that, mulling it over, writing their names on pieces of paper, I'm going to chat at you a little. So if you haven't been to a moth session before, if you listen to NPR on your way out of church today, you'll hear it. It'll be on the air. And the moth sessions are essentially community groups that get together and they just share stories from their lives. That's all it is. And so when you attend one, there's only one rule. And the rule is that we gotta love and clap for everyone who shares. It's a brave thing to share a story from your life. And one of the beautiful things about our community here at Crosswalk is we have lots of different people who are willing to share these stories from their life, and it's a beautiful space, and it makes me really grateful to be a part of this community, and I think every one of us who's experienced this here at Crosswalk before feels the same way. It's a really beautiful thing. So just remember that this is a really loving, supportive room. I am a little nervous that no one's coming up. So is there really no one that wants to share something today? Okay, we got one coming. Great, Bruno, great. So if you, here's what I'm gonna do, just see if we get a few more people. I'm gonna give yourselves 5 minutes to talk around the table about a story of an unsung hero in your life. And I suspect that around your table, someone at that table has a story. And if you do, and you sounds interesting, like see if you can give it in like 1 sentence to the group at your table. If it sounds interesting, encourage them to share, because it's a really beautiful thing when we hear these stories from one another. So I'm gonna give you guys 5 minutes to talk about it. 1 sentence about an unsung hero from your life. It could be from your own life or someone that you know, or a story that you've heard. I see so many people sharing these wonderful stories. I would love for you to share them with the entire room. Encourage each other to put your name on a piece of paper and come on down. Good. All right, if you've heard something around your table and you think it sounds like something that people would want to hear about because you're talking about it so interestingly and attentively in your small group, send them on down. Last chance. Oh, okay. Of course not. You're fine. Okay. Looks like everybody is wound down a little bit. We've got plenty of names. Thanks for putting your name in the hat. I'm looking forward to this. It's a fun topic. I think it's been a great Sunday so far. Oh, one more, Carol. Great. It's great that we've had so much music this morning with Bottle Rock going on. I think that's so cool. Okay. It's been great that we've had music this morning, and a really quick show of hands. Dar mentioned that it is Memorial Day, and I wanted to bring this up really quickly. Raise your hand if a member of your family passed away while they were in the service. Raise your hand. Raise your hand. If someone in your family passed away during military service, keep your hand up. Keep your hand up. Raise your hand if you know someone who passed away during military service. Everyone keep your hand up. And then raise your hand if you know, keep your hand up, Raise your hand if you know someone who knows someone who passed away during military service. That sounds funny, but look around the room. Look how many hands are up. Look how many hands are up. As a country, we've just gotten out of 20 years of military conflict. Before that, we had multiple generations who were involved in military conflict. It's important for us to honor people's sacrifice, but it's also important for us to recognize how pervasive that impact is on us as a country, as a culture, as a society. And wouldn't it be wonderful if one day we could ask those questions and not see a sea full of hands go up, right? So, as we think about unsung heroes today, thanks everyone who put the name in the hat to share. We're going to try to keep the stories to 5 minutes. So I'm going to be sitting over there. I'm going to wave at you at 4 minutes, okay? And at 5 minutes, I'm going to stand up and start walking. All right? That's it. And the first name up is Lauren for Lisa. All right, put your hands together for Lauren.
Okay, this is a short notice unsung hero that Lisa talked about at the table and made me tell this story. So when Lisa and I were dating, I got to find out that her favorite movie was The Wizard of Oz, and guess what song? Somewhere Over the Rainbow. She loves it. We have several versions. She just melts when she hears it. So, on her honeymoon, we went to Hawaii. And the first day we drove out, we were in Maui, and on the side of a road, and there was really good view, and she got out of the car and slipped on a hillside and broke her camera. She took maybe one photo. So we drove to Costco in Maui, bought another camera, and then I think it was the next day we went out onto the lava beds right at the ocean. It was beautiful, but that lava is treacherous. Just got really sharp edges and everything. And we were really enjoying it and looking forward to our day. And she took a misstep and landed right on her face. The least important part of it is that she also broke the new camera. But she had a fat lip, knocked a tooth loose, had scars on her face and down her legs and stuff, and I led her back to the car and got ice out of the ice chest and packed her face in ice, covered her eyes with a washcloth and tried to clean her up and everything, and she's laying in the car and she's suffering. And just then, this little white, obvious rental car pulled up right next to us, and there was like parking spaces all over the place, but they pulled right next to us. And this one guy and 3 women got out of the car, and these women, they were obviously French. They were speaking with an accent. They had these white gauzy summer dresses on, and they looked around and they were seeing how beautiful it was, and they immediately started singing "Somewhere Over the Rainbow" in a French accent. And the other part of the story is Lisa's grandmother, who she loved dearly, was from Quebec and was French and spoke to her in French to soothe her when she was a little child. And she's got her eyes covered, and she doesn't know, where is this coming from? And she's like, are these angels? Am I dead? And they went on and on. They sang the entire song, and it was amazing. She finally, took the washcloth off of her face to see what was happening. These angels singing to her when she was in great pain and in need of comfort. Those were her unsung heroes.
Thank you, Lauren, and Lisa for slipping so that we'd have a story. Okay, next up, Pamela Taylor. All right, put your hands together. Pamela, come on down. You were supposed to be last? Well, it's better to get it out of the way now. You got it? Okay, you can sit, stand, wherever you're comfortable with.
I don't know. Oh, God. Well, I don't do this, so I hope this will turn out to make sense. My first husband worked at Mare Island on nuclear submarines, and he really made a big difference in my life and his children's lives. And he's passed away very young, and I just wish to have shared that with you. That's it.
Thank you. All right, next up, I have, is it Barbara and Carol together? All right, Barbara and Carol together, come on down. The new duo, Barbara and Carol together. Oh, so we only have the one microphone? Do you want me to get another one, or are we okay?
We wanted to come up together because we need to support each other, see? And that was the only way I could get Barbara to come up. So we both have a story that has something to do with food. And of course, we're having potlucks, so you know that we like food, right? All right. Many years ago, when I was getting a divorce from my first husband, money was very, very tight for me. Money was his thing, so of course it was all his, and so it took a while for me to have some financial security. So during that period of time, I worked at an optometrist office here locally, and had very, very low paid job. And so my daughter was living with me, and she had a low-paying job. So between the two of us, we were struggling. And but we had a roof over our head, so we were, fortunate in that regard. But We were living out of our pantry of stuff that we had accumulated for years and then just buying a few little things here and there to supplement it. And in the optometry office came a little man who lived out off of Orchard Avenue and had property and had fruit trees and a huge vegetable garden. And all of a sudden, he started coming in every week and bringing me a box of produce and fruit. I didn't ask for it. It just began to appear on a weekly basis. And it supplemented our food supply until eventually I had more financial security. And so he's my unsung hero.
Okay, my story is similar to Carol's in the fact that we had food given to us all the time. I am one of 9 children, stuck right in the middle. I have 3 brothers and 5 sisters. 5 sisters, I had a cow. And I was stuck right in the middle. And my parents, from the time we could walk, would send us to church, all 9 of us. Somebody from Bryn Mawr Gospel Hall, back in Bryn Mawr, Pennsylvania, would come and pick us up every week. It took a van, and they did so much for us. With 9 kids and a father that did a lot of drinking, my mom had no money and depended on so many other people. Every holiday, Thanksgiving and Christmas, we lived on this house in King of Prussia. It was an old farmhouse, and they would deliver us baskets of food. I mean, baskets of food on Thanksgiving and on Christmas. And the Christmas presents that they would give us at Christmas time for all 9 kids was amazing. I don't even remember if we had a Christmas tree, but we had the gift from Bryn Mawr Gospel Hall that led me to the Lord, and that's where I got my start in my Christianity.
Thank you guys for sharing. One more round of applause for Barbara Carroll. All right, next up we have Crystal Largo. All right, put your hands together for Crystal. Thank you, Crystal. Take your time, no rush. Crystal Largo, you got it. Oh, no, you're fine. All right, one more round of applause for Crystal Largo. You want to sit? Okay.
Trying to stop my knees from shaking by putting them close together here. I'm a very new member of Crosswalk Church, and it's absolutely one of the greatest joys of my life. I'm so happy to be here with all of you today. My unsung hero is a Mexican man, undocumented, that I fell in love with in 2008. And I had just moved to Napa earlier that year. And then I got moved into Napa Creek Manor over on Jefferson Street. And we didn't want to get married, but we did want to be together. So I was able to do what they call a reasonable accommodation legal paper, and Salvador became my full-time live-in caregiver. Little did we know the kind of care that he was going to end up giving me, because in 2013 I ended up in the hospital, and then 4 whole long agonizing months in a nursing home here in Napa. Every day, Salvador would call me or walk to the Golden Living where I was and tell me he loved me and bring me. Often he would arrive at 5 o'clock in the morning walking, because he was one of those Mexican men that went for work at Home Depot, so he would come all the way over to Trancas in Sauskell, I guess it is, and then walk all the way over to Home Depot. And he did that just to bring me water and tell me he loved me. That kept me alive for those 4 months. And they finally allowed me to come home, only because I had Salvador as the full-time live-in caregiver, because I was unable to move myself about or walk yet. And finally, we parted company in 2018, and all that time, from the time I came home in January of 2014 to October of 2018, he cared for me. He cooked and cleaned, and to be real blunt, he emptied my commode because I wasn't able to get up and go to the bathroom normally. He washed my clothes. He took care of our 2 chihuahuas, Juanito and Chiquita. And they were like our children, and I gave them to him when he left. So Salvador is my unsung hero. Not everybody knows how much he saved my life, literally. And so I want to share that, and I want to honor him. He still works in Napa. He lives over in Fairfield with the dogs, except one of them died now. So, y'all, I couldn't move. I was crippled and unable to move. I was what they call an invalid, which unfortunately I realized is the 2 words invalid. It's not good to feel invalid. So I stand here to show you that gumption and perseverance and lots of good health foods and the love of God and Jesus and the Holy Spirit are absolutely working hard in this world today to help those of us that ask for the help. So, pray.
Thank you, Crystal Largo. Yeah, of course I'll help you down. Of course, of course.
One of these days I'll dance for you all.
There you go. Woo!
Okay.
Got it? You got it?
Yep.
You're all right. All right. Okay. Next up we have Rebecca Prawl. Come on down, Rebecca.
Thanks. Well, Crystal, I can't possibly follow that story. That was unbelievable. Okay, I was raised in a little town in northern Oklahoma called Ponca City. And I remember from being very little that my parents had this friend named Josie Plunkett. She was an algebra teacher in the junior high, and she lived with 2 other women. And she was just always a force. Like when I went to junior high, I'd run into her in the hallways, and she was just always very loving and kind. So she was a part of my life, and I left Oklahoma and came to Napa when I was in 8th grade. So I started thinking about her this morning because many years later, my sister and I went back to Ponca City, and Josie took us around and showed us, we went back to our church, and we went to see other people, and we did all of these things. I never realized that Josie was gay, and I didn't know the word gay. My parents never mentioned the word gay. I didn't know that until way later, and she lived with her partner and her sister. And in retrospect, when I finally learned that word and put it together with Josie, I realized that she had taught me a really important lesson, which is, we are all children of God, and she was such an amazing, loving person in our community where I never knew anybody else gay there. So anyway, thanks to Josie for teaching me some important life lessons. That's that.
Thank you for sharing, Rebecca. Cheers to Josie. Next up, we have Becky. All right. All right, Becky.
I'm actually much more comfortable dancing for you than this. And I've wanted to be a part of this. I was really impressed the first time we did it outside, and I thought, oh gosh, I'm at church and Pete's not going to talk. Great. And it was the first moth that we did, and it was just a really moving experience. It's very difficult for me because any of the stories that I want to tell, oh God, I'm already crying, involve my mother. And my mother's not here today, so I'm going to get to tell this story. When I was young, my mother was married to a man who was an alcoholic. And at the time, I didn't know that he wasn't my father because they married when I was really young. And they together had 2 other daughters. So I had 2 younger sisters who were my half-siblings, which I didn't know that at the time either. But the weird thing was my older sister and I were always treated really differently. And when he got angry, or sometimes when he was just being mean, he would single us out and he would either hit us or make us do horrible chores or things like that. And we thought we were bad because we didn't know that there was any biological difference between the 2 of us, the 2 sets of sisters. So anyway, that was a difficult time growing up. He was very violent when he was drunk, and so at one point he knocked my mother on the ground, and my sister and I were awake and heard this, and the next day she said, "Did you hear what was happening?" We said, "Yes," and she said, "Well, if that ever happens again, you need to get help because he's much bigger than me and he could kill me." So I was 12, I think at the time, or 11. And so, sure enough, a few nights later, he came home, drunk, and we heard them yelling first. We were awake, and so when we heard her literally hit the floor, my older sister, I had to open the window. She ran out the window and went down and got our neighbor who came and took my stepdad away. That night, we went to a friend's house overnight and then came to Napa the next morning where my mother's brother and his family and my grandparents lived. So we moved here, and it was tragic. On that Sunday, which must have only been a day or 2 later, we came to church, and my mother had, bruises on the side of her face, and she was trying hard to cover all that up with makeup. And I remember people came up to her and said, "Oh, we're so glad you're here," and she was just cringing. But we were here and we were safe, and it was a great feeling. We still were completely displaced. The next day, we went to the Salvation Army, I think it was, and we're looking for clothes because we left that night with nothing except what we had on our backs, nothing. And so we're at the Salvation Army, and my older sister and I are, real close together, and we're walking around, and this woman comes up and she says, "Excuse me, are you looking for clothes for your daughters?" And my mother said, "Yes," and she just looks a wreck, she's just, and she said, "Well, I have some clothes my daughter has outgrown, and so why don't you come by our house?" And I didn't really know if this was unusual or not. She lived out by the state hospital, and I remember it was evening when we went there, and she brought out these boxes of clothes that she was going to donate and hadn't done so yet, and they either fit my sister or me. And so it was just this blessing that not only are you starting in a new place with really bad circumstances, but we were at least going to have clothes to wear to school so we wouldn't look ridiculous. And I do not know this woman's name. I don't even know for sure where she lives. I don't know if my mother ever knew her name to send her a note or anything. But I know we thanked her profusely that night. And this woman didn't have to say anything. She could have just let us buy clothes at the store. So it was just a really profound experience to me then even, but as I've gotten older, that gesture that she made really was impactful on our lives, and it wasn't a big thing for her to do. And I try to remember that throughout my life, that if I make one small act of kindness to someone, what an effect that could have on their lives, even if it doesn't have a great one on mine at the moment. So I encourage us all to keep doing those small acts of kindness. Thank you.
Thank you, Becky. That's powerful. Shameless plug for Crosswalk. Your participation and your support of us as a church actually supports several organizations that help women and families in those exact circumstances. So thank you for your generosity. Next up, Candace Ramsey. Come on down, Candace. Woo!
Good morning. I'm going to make this a little bit briefer because my mouth is starting to hurt. But I was thinking about all of the heroes. Once we started talking, I was like, oh yeah, that person. But what I'd really like to give credit today is to my oldest brother. His name was Ed. He passed away in 2010. He had end-stage muscular dystrophy. And he was my unsung and sung hero in life. My only regret is that I didn't tell him enough while he was alive. He was born in 1954. At 6 years old, he was diagnosed with muscular dystrophy. The doctors told my mom they didn't know what kind it was. He was going to pass away by the time he was a teenager. But he did live. He dropped out of school in 7th grade because they didn't have enough support in those days. And he just couldn't handle the bullying and whatnot, and he just gave up. He was in a wheelchair full-time by the time he was 20. In his mid-20s, he got tired of sitting around watching TV and eating sunflower seeds, and he got himself up and went and got his GED and went to the Napa College and transferred to Sacramento State and had a career at the state of Sacramento as a accountant. So but in addition to that, he was also a songwriter. He loved music. He had a beautiful voice. He was brilliant. After he retired, he actually learned how to trade stocks and did quite well. He would get himself up in the morning with his body in a weakened state in the cold weather in Sacramento, pulled himself together, took his rode his wheelchair to the bus, to the light rail to go to work. He did not want, when offered a support group for other people with muscular dystrophy, he said, nope, they're a bunch of whiners. He was just a tough dude, and what he taught me in life is that, and I can attribute it to him, no matter how you get knocked down, just get back up. The day he passed away, he was alone. I have a feeling that he was given the Grim Reaper the finger because he loved life no matter what, and even as he was bedridden for the last year and a half. And he still wrote songs and traded stocks in his bed with his laptop. It was amazing. So Ed, I love you, I miss you. Here's for you. Thanks.
Thank you, Candace. And thanks, Ed. Jenny Olson, you're up next. I saw you, Jenny. Where are you? There you are.
All right, so it's so interesting that we're doing this today because I just remembered this person who is one of my many unsung heroes just the other night, and I hadn't thought about her in many, many years. I was at Napa Valley College's commencement, and I'm on the board, so I was sitting in an area where I had a really great view of all the teachers, the professors at the college, and just, feeling that closeness or that love for teachers, because I think teachers are definitely unsung heroes in our world. And, watching the students graduate and the pride on their faces and just the interactions as they were passing the teachers, and there was, with a lot of them, that one teacher who they lingered and, thanked and hugged extra long. And I really, going back now, 40 years, really struggled in high school, barely made it through high school, and the many years afterwards really, really struggled. I had found myself in southern Idaho, living up there, and decided to take an art class at our community college up in southern Idaho, just for something positive to do, you know, and slowly realized that I wanted to be an artist. I wanted to do something with my life. I needed to get out of my current really toxic situation. And there was one particular teacher, her name was Jan Mitleiter, who saw the light in me before I saw it in myself, believed in me, hired me. Now, she not only was a teacher and was really supportive as a teacher to me, she was also a fitness instructor. She taught fitness classes to people over 60, and she hired me to draw figures of people doing the different exercises and create a poster that she had printed to use in her. And I was not a very good artist at the time, and she paid me to do this because she wanted me, or maybe she didn't even know how impactful it was, but she just gave me that confidence that I could do this. I could do something with my life. I could use something I love doing, you know, drawing and design, and make a career and just, you know, be something. And I just really credit her for and the community college system, which is why I'm now on the board of our local community college. It changed my life. It put me on a trajectory to do something with my life, and it was that belief that she had in me that helped me start believing in myself. So Jan Mitleiter, I'm going to look her up and reach out to her and really share with her how much she made a difference in my life. And again, I really truly feel that teachers are unsung heroes, and they change lives, and by changing lives of their students, there's a ripple effect in the change that's created in our world.
That's awesome. We're lucky to have such a great community college in our community, too. I mean, it's a really, really vibrant and an important place, so what a cool thing to recognize. Before I called up the next person, I'm supposed to tell the audience that Jaja considers Crosswalk her hero, her life hero, her unsung life hero. That's awesome. Thank you, Jaja. Next is my wife, Ann Wagoner. If you get the Borat reference, great. She's so mad at me.
Hi, my name is Anne. Okay, how many of you have ever worked in hospitality? A few of us. Me too. I feel like if you've worked in hospitality, you know what it means to be an unsung hero. Because you could be doing any number of things that really often go unthanked. So thank you for your work. Growing up in Virginia, I grew up in a family that really valued hospitality, and we often had strangers over for dinner, or my dad would bring home people for dinner, and it was just expected. And my mom even had a phrase for us. Sometimes she would go, "Hey everybody, it's an FHB dinner," and that meant family hold back, because she hadn't made quite enough. And I loved that. I loved growing up in that kind of hospitable environment. And so it was no surprise when I was in my early 20s and going through kind of a tough breakup that I moved to Colorado to work at a guest ranch and practice hospitality. And I'd been there about a year when I really got the chance to experience hospitality in a new way firsthand. We had a forest fire come through the ranch where I worked. And I had never experienced that. Y'all have all experienced that probably, and now I have. But as the fire grew closer, we evacuated the guests, and then while ash was falling in our hair, we finally got all the staff out, and there were about 60 staff members working at the ranch at that time. It was the height of our summer season, and not all of us evacuated. Some people stayed back to try to save the ranch. And so we ended up going to Colorado Springs. And our manager of the ranch ended up calling anyone who was a friend of the ranch to ask them to take in some staff members. And so we ended up calling guests who had literally just been evacuated, whose vacations had been ruined. They called our ranch manager and said, "Anybody need a house?" And So 60 of us were dispersed among different homes. And this went on for weeks, where we stayed in strangers' homes. And the first night, I stayed in a former staff member's home, and she had a tiny little studio apartment in Colorado Springs. And I realized then that I had really not packed well. As we were evacuating, I had brought with me the bongo drums that I had never played. And I had brought with me every book I'd ever written a word in, every piece of paper I'd ever doodled on, but I didn't have a toothbrush. I had no hairbrush, I had no clean underwear, but I had every photo album I had ever had in my whole life. And she, bless her heart, she put a sleeping bag in her closet, and she slept there so I could have the bed. And this went on for weeks and weeks. Eventually, most of the summer staff was sent home. And as it turned out, the fire had split into two at the property line of our ranch and had gone around the ranch. And it was so hot that the hay bales for the horses had spontaneously combusted. But the people who stayed behind had fought the fire and saved the ranch. So eventually, the summer staff was sent home for until we could open again, but I stayed with one other person to continue calling future guests and to kind of keep ranch business moving forward. I don't know why I was chosen to do this. It was kind of a terrible idea. Okay, it's been 4 minutes. But every 3 nights, I was staying with someone different, and I don't remember their names. I never knew them, but they gave me a breakfast. They gave me a home for a few nights, and I just felt so welcomed. And when I think about what we do here at Crosswalk during fires, during fires, we thank the heroes, we thank the firefighters, we thank the first responders, and we should. They're doing amazing work, life-threatening work. But there's also heroic hospitality that happens. And when you're displaced, even for a moment, it's really a big deal to have someone give you a safe space. And I'm so proud that we are part of that, because I've experienced it firsthand, and it's pretty dang amazing.
I'm going to share one real quick, because Ann's story just made me think of one. So I had a career in the hospitality industry too before I moved to Napa. And at one point in time, I worked at a hotel in Los Angeles that was called the Park Hyatt. It ended up becoming the Intercontinental Beverly Hills. It's kind of a swanky hotel. And one of the cool things that we did every year was we would host one of the 2 Rose Bowl teams. So for a week, you would have one of the football teams, their families, and the coaching staff staying at the property. And it was a big, big week for the hotel. We would have a really early breakfast. And I was working as general manager in the restaurant at the time. And one morning, I overslept. And so I arrived, and you had, I was setting up the family breakfast. So it was the parents of the players that were showing up for breakfast. And one of the things that we had to do, we had to set up, chafing dishes. Those are those little kind of buffet stations. They have little sternos underneath them. And so we're in a rush setting up the chafing dishes. We light the sternos, and we have to move one of them. And in the process of moving it, the sterno flips out, it's lit, and it spills all of that lit liquid gel all over the tablecloth. So now, in a matter of seconds, there's an entire table that is on fire. And I am frozen. I am completely panicked. I am completely freaking out. And a father of one of the players calmly grabs a pitcher of water that is on the table next to me and just pours it all over the table, and the fire goes out. I have no idea who that guy is, but he saved the restaurant from burning down. So, good job, buddy. So next up, we have Bruno. Come on down, Bruno.
Give and you shall receive. I think it's on the Bible somewhere, right? Somebody can help me. There's a few years ago, we read a book about giving, and it really struck me. And there's a couple, other stories in the Bible. The millionaire coming into the temple, giving $5,000, or the poor, homeless giving a penny, 100%. Who gives more? So it has, like Pete would say, messed up with my mind. So a few years ago, I was really wanted to make the difference in somebody's life. And because I'd say the day I die, I want to at least make sure that I change one person's life. And all of a sudden, I had a contact from a young lady from the Philippines, contacting me the old-fashioned way, Facebook, through messengers. And I was skeptical, of course, of scammers, but it turned out to become a really good friendship. And I said, well, maybe when she was showing me where she lived, her condition, very poor condition, is the region of Tiboli, the most southern island of the Philippines. I was like, how can you live in those conditions? How can you live in those conditions? She was going to work in a banana field for $3 a day, the whole day, for $3 a day, 120 degree temperature, 90% humidity, full of chemicals. I mean, how can you do that? And she was working along with her mother, 60-year-old mother, doing this. I'm like, this is my opportunity to give. So a few weeks after we connected, her sister, the major breadwinner of the family, got killed in a car accident. Very tragic. They were devastating. And that's when I started to give. I said, well, here, few bucks here and there. But then we, develop our friendship and say, you got to change your life. With all of what I've learned here in CrossWalk, say you got to change your life. What about going to school and getting a diploma? So say, okay. So I supported for last 4 years, going to school and to get our diploma. And it was difficult. I was going through a difficult time in 2019. Some of you know, but I was homeless for about 5 months. I slept in my car. But I said, no, just give, keep on giving, and you will receive, And I keep on giving, and all of a sudden, things turned around. Early 2020, I found an affordable apartment in Napa. I said, well, okay, that's a step up from the car. That's good. And obviously, in 2020, you know what happened? The pandemic. I said, keep on giving. You will receive. Keep on giving. So I found a job an income. I was delivering now after Uber was shut down, so I was delivering for Whole Food. Kept me going the whole pandemic. It was great. I was helping people. I would make an income. I kept on giving. And all of a sudden, early 2021, a business fell on my lap. I wasn't looking for it, but it fell on my lap. And some of you knows I'm in transportation, taking people to the airport and wine tours. And from zero business, all of a sudden I have 10, 12 reservations a week. I'm like, geez, I have to do a business. So I started my business and, keep on giving to Rachel. I felt she was a God-fearing child. She's a leader in our community. She's doing very well, and going through school gave her the confidence to do that. So in the meantime, I also find that my business gave a solution to my son, who was kind of struggling in life, and is doing pretty well now. And 2023, she graduated. She's the first of our family to graduate from college. And unfortunately, the job market is kind of tough there. From $3, she went to she found a job, but it was $6 a day instead of $3. So we started. We told her I started a business with her. I said, you have a farm background. Let's start a business. So I gave her a couple $1,000s to secure 2 acres of land to grow corn, And now we have about 30 pigs and growing a farm that will help the community there. So she's becoming a leader in her community. And it's amazing how they can be poor, but still have faith, smile, happy. And here we are always complaining every day. So she's kind of my unsung hero. And we are going, keeping going the project. It's called Rachel Community Farm. And she's my unsung hero.
Thank you, Bruno. Did anyone else feel encouraged by all the people that we've come up before I call the last name? Last chance? All right. I'm sorry? Do you want to share now? All right, come back up.
Yeah. I'll make this short. I misunderstood. I thought we were talking about military and people who passed. And so now I want to share the best thing that ever happened in my late life. I've had a lot of surgeries and things we won't go into, but I remember coming here and standing in line to get into the pantry. And at the time I started, I have nerve damage, and it was so bad. I was talking out of the side of my mouth, and I had this lady come up to me and say, "Come on in, you need to sit down. You don't need to stand out in the line. We'll get you some groceries." And this happened a few times. And then she started coming to my home and bringing me food and prayers. And she brought her mother, and her mother prayed with me and her. And I felt like the weight I was having and the turmoil that was behind my illness just lifted. And this woman today, I still say, she was the best thing that happened to me. And I love you for it. And I praise God that you were there for me at that particular time. And that's Carrie Nuggio.
That's awesome. Thanks, Manuela. And Carrie's been an unsung hero for lots of people. Everyone who knows Carrie knows that. So, and last but certainly not least, Robert Simmons, come on down. It's a long walk. Put your hands together for Robert Simmons. He's a teacher he's automatically an unsung hero for lots of people. You bet, man.
Okay, I'm gonna try to make this quick because I'm last, right? And I'm hungry, so. It's almost June, so it's almost Pride Month. And so what I wanted to bring to the attention, our unsung heroes, are those who live out proud, both LGBT as well as our LGBT allies. The reason for that being is, raise your hand if you can spot a gay or a lesbian. Liars! Liars! It's easier for me to say rainbow people. If you don't mind, I'm going to say rainbow people. Rainbow people are a minority in general, but it's also a survival instinct for us to be straight cis-passing. Now what that means is you couldn't tell that I was gay, or you couldn't tell that I was, if I were trans, if I were trans. So it's a survival instinct for us, because oftentimes if we're outed, we're ostracized, and oftentimes we will face violence. I don't know, for some of us who've gone to unwelcoming churches, that smile of welcome and warmth turns quickly into your piece of trash look. or you get the, you know what the Bible says, right? So, LGBT students, just give you some numbers, are twice as likely to experience depression, bullying, and thoughts of suicide. That's for our students. Oftentimes, they don't have safe spaces. Oftentimes, they don't have safe homes. The default is straight. People automatically assume that you are a straight person, that you're having sex with the opposite sex. So it's really hard to be out and proud. Let me get to my point. Okay. For my unsung heroes are those who live out and proud, both as an LGBT and both as an ally. If you fly a flag, if you're open about your sexuality, or if you're open about your allyship, thank you. For those of you who wear shirts, for those of you who speak up, thank you. For those of you who come to this church and pass by that flag in the front, very prominent, thank you. Because when you do that, when you attempt to show your safe spaceness, when you attempt to say the proper pronouns, you're not just trying to not offend anyone, you're preventing someone from suiciding. You're letting them unclench, because every room we walk into, we don't know whether we're going to get that "you're a piece of trash" look, or whether we're going to be welcomed. So thank you all for being that ally and being so out and proud about it.
Thank you, Robert. Thank you, Crosswalk. I think that's awesome. What a great way to end, because it's, again, kind of a huge shout out to us as a community. I feel so grateful, and I'm sure you do too, that we come and worship every week in a place where we feel this kind of safety and we feel this kind of intimacy with one another. It's a true community here. And this small thing that we do periodically, whenever Pete's on vacation, is a really great way for us to continue to celebrate that. So Brian's got